Okay, moving on from Killzone 2, we've got yet another Naruto title to talk about, and that is Naruto Broken Bond. You can see it behind me. Mr. Dan is actually playing it, and it's pretty cool, huh?
It is. It's not your standard fighter.
No.
We're in the dojo mode here just to kind of give you a look at some of the modes and the features you'll be able to pull off the moves.
That's right. Now, Naruto Broken Bond, don't mistake it for Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm, which just came out on the PS3. This one is a 360 exclusive that is being developed out of Ubisoft Montreal, as opposed to Ultimate Ninja Storm, which is developed out of Namco Bandai in Japan. The two games are somewhat similar.
How different? Like, okay, both of them are fairly orientated on fighting. How does it differentiate between the two?
Okay, well, both have two basically very distinct modes. There's a single-player campaign which you go through, which is basically like a little adventure type game, and the multiplayer aspect of it is basically a straight up sort of beat 'em up, such as Dan is playing right now. So in the single-player campaign, basically in the Naruto timeline, that takes place between, I think, episodes 80 and 135 of the anime. The game basically starts where Orochimaru, bit of a spoiler, Orochimaru actually kills the third Hokage in Hidden Leaf Village, and basically it's your job as Naruto to go on from there. And I think the actual storylines that this will be this game is will be looking at is the return of Itachi, the search for Tsunade, and the Sasuke retrieval storylines. So the single-player component of it, as I said, is basically an adventure mode, as well as sort of combat, one-on-one combat with people you meet. You also have to go around and explore towns and villages.
What's it like graphically?
It looks really awesome. As you can see, it's a bit cel-shaded, so it does look like it's a version of the anime playing out right in front of you there. In terms of looks, I think it's probably not as good looking as Ultimate Ninja Storm on the PS3, but I think it holds up fairly well. And the actual sort of multiplayer campaign, you've got 25 characters to choose from, and yeah, it gets a little bit sort of Capcom versus Street Fighter type thing, in which you can have two players on your same team and you can swap
Tag
in and out. Yeah, you can tag in and out,
which I really like, because you can also alternate combos depending on which character works best for you.
Yeah, and as Dan's showing here, like it is a fairly sort of simple sort of beat 'em up. You've got two buttons which are basically mapped to different type of attacks, and you do combos just by mixing up your attack buttons. The really cool thing with this is Jutsu, which as fans of Naruto will know, that's all the super ninja power moves that they actually have. Jutsu in this is performed by holding down the left trigger and doing a combination of both of the joysticks as one. So for example, you probably have to hold down the left trigger and, for example, move both sticks up and then both sticks inwards, and you'll perform a jutsu move. It's a bit of a risk-reward system, because once you actually do a jutsu move, you have to charge it for a little bit, which will leave you open to attacks. But the good thing with jutsu moves is it does reward you with a pretty cool cinematic most of the time, although a lot of the times that's also dependent on quick time button presses, which it's pretty much dime a dozen nowadays. But I don't know, quick time sort of button moves are pretty fun, and on this they're kind of forgiving. And it's actually, it's not all the same quick time things as well. For example, different characters will have different super moves, which will trigger different button presses. For example, I think the third Hokage has this one where if you charge it properly, he's basically running at you with all these sort of like magic shurikens being thrown at you. And if you're attacking as the third Hokage, you basically input as many sort of button presses as you can. And if you're defending, a little sort of Guitar Hero like mini game pops up where you have to press the same buttons that the third Hokage pressed in time to avoid the attack. And if you're good enough to press all the buttons in the right sequence, then you're good enough to actually to avoid the attack. So,
which I really like. There's a really nice element to that, because it is a super combo, but at the same time there's an element for the player on the receiving end to be able to counter it.
Exactly, and they're all like that. There's moves to basically counter every one of the jutsus. So if you're good enough, you can actually avoid them, although some are really hard to avoid. Like, there's one where it's like the sort of like a finger of death
The
type
touch of
move.
death move. That's
Yeah.
that's really cool, but you still need to have the person on the receiving end move their body around so that they're not being poked to death.
Yeah, in terms of combat, I think this is actually better than Ultimate Ninja Storm. But once again, I think in terms of graphics, Ultimate Ninja Storm is just a little bit ahead of Broken Bond.
So when's this one out?
This one is out today. Well, that is November 20 on the 360 in Australia.